Hosted by Mike, the Big Cheese.
All right, welcome back to the Heavy Metal Mayhem Radio Show. It is December 4th. I can't believe it. We made it to the end of the year. It was a great year, too, and I was happy to be back on. It took me a few months to kind of get the swing of things going with Spreaker after being on Block Talk Radio for like 13 years. But I'm happy that I'm here and redoing the show again live every Sunday night for you guys. It was always fun, and I kind of regret giving it up for that year and a half. Even though I kept doing interviews and we kept the show going, just not on a live front. I'm glad we're back, and we're going to wrap up our first year back on the air in a couple of weeks, so I'm happy about that. But we got a great show for everybody tonight. Chuck Brummond and Jason Myers of Invid. You also know Jason from Icarus Witch, great Pittsburgh band. We'll be talking to them in about a half hour or so. We're going to get on as much music as we can tonight. We're only going to have one guest on a week till the end of the year. We have 3 live shows left this month, and then we'll do our Christmas special. We're going to be off the air for a week for the holidays, and we'll be back on again in January. So just one guest a week. We'll get to a lot of music. The last few months, I know we've had 2 and 3 guests on a week and really haven't gotten a lot of music on, so we'll get back to the music this month. Maybe we'll do a year-end special, but we got a good one for tonight. And right there, Black Sabbath with The Shining. That was from the demo with Ray Gillen on vocals. Tony Martin did the album version in '87 when it came out. And this was a demo version that was recorded not long before then. And it didn't come out, I think, until maybe 20 years later when they released like a special edition box set and they included the whole demo version of the Eternal Idol record with Ray on vocals. And Ray was just such a great singer, and it's hard to believe it's 30 years almost. It's actually 29 years this week that he passed away. It'll be almost 30 years next year. Ray died of AIDS. Like I said, an amazing singer. He didn't leave a lot behind, but what he did was just outstanding. I mean, the 2 Badlands records were phenomenal. He did a lot of vocal appearances on other people's records. The F-66 single, which came out like 80, I think it was. And I remember him from Rondinelli, like in 1985. And it was a shame, I mean, the guy battled with drugs, and, I know they did an interview with Jakey Lee where he said he had no idea he was a drug addict. Like they talked about it before the band was started and everything, and it's like he shot up heroin one time. Most people don't shoot up heroin one time, but in the end, it really only takes one time with an infected needle, and you're going to get AIDS. And he fought it up till the end, and he died in 1993. And like I said, just a great singer over there. Even though I do love the Eternal, like all the Sabbath records from the '90s that came out, I love all of them. I mean, even going back to like, I always consider Sabbath, Ozzy and even Dio, because I kind of got into Sabbath on my own when Dio was the singer of the band in 1980. That was like the Sabbath I came into. I knew of the earlier Sabbath because I grew up in a house where cousins had always played it and I was familiar with the music, but it wasn't until Ronnie James Dio came into the band that I knew him from Rainbow. That's when I became like, a Sabbath fan. And, I love Born Again with Ian Gillan on vocals. Didn't really sound like Black Sabbath, but I love that record. And I love the stuff he did with Tony Martin and Glenn Hughes. If they all had different names and weren't Black Sabbath records, I think it would have been a little bit better. And I know Tony tried that when this, I forgot what record it was. I don't know if it was the Eternal Idol or the one that came out before that. It was really supposed to be a Tony Iommi solo record. It might have been the Seventh Star. And there was supposed to be a lot of different singers on there. And, they kind of convinced him to go with Glenn Hughes and just keep it to one singer. And then it was keep it on the Black Sabbath. And I think if they didn't force that upon him back then, because really Sabbath was a name recognition and, that's what they wanted to promote and sell. I think Tony would have went through the rest of that decade putting out different records with different singers. And it would have been a great thing. But all of those records are great in their own right, especially the Tony Martin era, which is really, really underrated. But there were 2 or 3 really, really good records that came out. All right, let's get back to the music. Later on, we're going to talk about Pantera's reunion. We talked about it on us before. I can't get too crazy over it because, in all honesty, I was never a Pantera fan. I can't stand Phil Anselmo. I just don't like the guy at all. So, I was never really a Pantera fan. If I was, I'd actually say it was more of the Terry Glaze era of Pantera. So, but we'll talk about them out there playing again. And we'll talk about, there were a few people out there who were making comments about, it is what it is. And you should just love it for what it is. And I get that, but I'm kind of a purist in a way, you know that. So we'll talk about that. And then John brought to my attention, Metallica's new record with this new tour where their tickets going for like upwards of $7,000 for packages. Granted, I think it's for like 8 people and all, but some of these packages are a little like way over the top in price for what you're getting for it, and it's just not worth it for the Metallica of today. And we'll get into that later on in the show. We'll talk more about that. But let's kind of get into the music right now. We only have enough time for maybe 2 or 3 songs before the interview starts. So how about we go to Juggernaut? It's been a while since I've played them on the show. And I know I want to get some Jack Panzer on today also. But here's a Swarm from Juggernaut. Jack Panzer, Metal Melts the Ice. Next year is going to be a big year for Jack Panzer. They're going to be in tour in Europe. They're going to have a brand new record out called The Hollowed. And if you go to Mark Boyotti's Facebook page, he is selling Jack Panzer merchandise directly. You know, you can buy directly through him right now on Facebook until the new Jack Panzer website is up next spring. He's got a lot of great designs on the T-shirts, the buttons, the picks, the patches, and I got to be honest, at a really good and fair price. You know, Mark is one of those guys who really cares about the fans and what they think, and he goes out of his way to do things for them. So I know where I'm going after the show is over tonight. I'm going on Facebook. I'm going to reach out to Mark and order a couple of T-shirts tonight. And I spoke to him a few weeks ago when the comic came out based on the new record, The Hollowed. And Mark will be on the show when the record is released. They're squaring away a deal right now with a label. Once that's done, we'll have Mark on here and we'll play some songs off the new record for everybody. I know it's going to be absolutely killer. And right before that, Slayer. It was 39 years ago this weekend that album came out. It's hard. I mean, I really feel old when I say stuff like that, you know. But what a great record that was. Show No Mercy. I remember I just turned 16 because my birthday's in October, and I was in high school still, and I had a part-time job on the weekends working in a bakery, cleaning up the bakery Friday night, and then like a Saturday morning and a Sunday for a little bit. Maybe I came home with $40. There were no child labor laws back then, not even here in New York in the 80s. But, you know, I made like maybe $4 an hour cleaning up the bakery, and I also had my first girlfriend around that time, so a lot of my money, my paycheck went to her, in the hopes that if I paid for enough stuff, I could probably get laid or at least get a little boob job going on or something, you know, when you're that age. But that didn't happen either, so that's why we weren't going out no more. But I would go to the record store every month to buy whatever records I could with my money. I would save it all up and go there. And the month before that, when I was there, the new Accept record came out back then, which was Balls to the Walls. And I said, you know what, I didn't have enough money to get it that day because I had picked up, I think, Saxon's new record at the time, and somebody else came out around that time. So I was buying that. I said, you know what, when I get enough money in the next weeks, I'll go back and I'll buy that. When I walked in there, I saw a Slayer record on the wall. It had just come out around this time, 39 years ago, too, the same week. And that's like 40 years old. And I said, no, I'm going to have to wait. Do I get the Accept? Because the first record I bought was Restless and Wild by Accept about a year or so earlier. And I fell in love with the band after that record came out. But then you got the record with the guy in the leather jacket holding the balls in his hand, or you have Slayer with the demon and the sword in there and the upside down pentagram. I was like, I'm going to go with the Slayer. And I do not regret it to this day. I mean, they were just great times back then, walking into a record store. And, you know, most of these bands I knew before a lot of other people because I was like a demo tape trader and bootleg. So I had a lot of friends all over the country and all over the world. Pen pals back then. We used to actually write letters and stick them in envelopes and mail them out to each people. I think a stamp was like 10 cents back then, you know. And so I knew about a lot of these bands before then, but I had no idea that the Slayer record was coming out at that time. Even though I had a demo tape by the band, I didn't know the record was coming out because you didn't have a lot of magazines back then. You had Kerrang! And Metal Forces, and I think Metal Forces came out once every other month, so if you missed an issue of it, and it was a lot of money. The Metal Force magazine, I want to say it was like $14 back then to buy. That was more than the records. Most records were only about $7, so you had to really make a choice. You know, am I spending $14 on the magazine, or am I getting the records? So I always got the Metal Forces, you know, eventually. I didn't get them exactly when they came out. Sometimes I'd have to wait a few weeks till I had extra money and I would buy a copy. But I still have every issue but one out of the first 3 years that the magazine came out. There's just one that I'm missing. I got to find out which one it is and maybe look for it on eBay. But they were just great times back then. All right, we're going to wait a couple of minutes because the band should be calling in about a minute or so. So I don't want to play a song and have to cut them off like I normally do. So we'll just hang out and wait a few minutes. Like I said, those were great days going to the record stores back then and just picking stuff up and buying them based on an album cover, because a lot of people didn't know who these bands were back then, and it was just an amazing time. So I do miss that. And we're going to talk later on about Pantera. We're going to talk about Metallica. John sent me a link for like all the packages, and I was like, my mind was boggled over it. Then, John, I got to tell you, after you sent me that, you know, there's a theater out here in Staten Island called the St. George Theater. It's a very old-fashioned theater. Oh, hang on. The band's calling right now, so I'm getting them on the line. Chuck, this is Mike. You're on the air live. How are you?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Well, not too bad. Not too bad.
It's a pleasure to have you on here. I have to tell you, I'm really happy that Heaven and Hell got in touch with you and released this stuff. I mean, it's good for people to hear this who haven't heard it before in the past.
Yeah, we're all excited about it. Everything has turned out just fantastic. Can't say enough about all the work that's gone into this and getting this stuff out there.
So how do you feel about the release? I mean, this is stuff that came out in the early '90s. I thought it held up really well because a lot of stuff from back then doesn't really. When you play now, like, wow, man, I can't believe I was really into that back then. But this stuff is not only did it hold up, but it even sounds better now. And I don't know if it's because it's been kind of forged away for a long time.
Yeah, it can go both ways. I mean, it's nice for the archives, but if the songwriting is there, which I think with a lot of stuff like that from the old days, it you're gonna get something out of it. So whether it's nostalgia or it does just hold up today with other stuff. Either way, I think the whole thing has been a real positive experience so far.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did this whole band come together? Because I want to say around that time you were probably working with Dead Zone, if that was in the time frame, late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much of that was well known at the time, but the Dead Zone project was something that I think you were just talking on the air about the tape trading environment and how all of that stuff was going on back in those days, and because we didn't really have internet or anything like that, so for folks to get get in touch with the underground stuff that was going on around the world, that's what it was. It was tape trading and fanzines and so forth. And I was looking to do something significant. I wanted to go all in on my musical career. So, but where I was in North Carolina, there just wasn't much opportunity around there. So I had a friend of mine who was in North Carolina, and he did a fanzine, and he was friends with Jerry Jameson, the original drummer, and they put me in contact with Leo Walter, who was the manager that was putting together the Dead Zone project, and went through a sort of a lengthy process trying to figure out if that was something that I wanted to get involved in and something that would fit for me, and that at the time it definitely seemed like it. It was a hell of an opportunity. Lots of big time kind of talk about getting things going and definitely moving up a lot of levels, I think, and so it was for me, it was something that I wanted to go all in on. It didn't turn out the way that I had hoped, but the end result, of course, was Invid. So that's
Yeah.
what
Forgive me
that's
if
what
I
got us
forgive me
here
if I
today, I
stumble.
guess.
I'm sorry, just forgive me if I stumble because I had surgery Friday. I'm still kind of doped up from Friday afternoon, so I'm a little all over the place today. But just forgive me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had some tooth stuff this week too, so I'm a little. Thankfully, my mouth is okay to talk, but yeah.
That's great. But people don't realize that they come from our age group. You're talking about North Carolina, they're going to Pittsburgh. These really weren't hotbeds for heavy metal spots. There was a lot going on in Los Angeles. Here in New York, we had Lemoore, which is like the premier club frame. We also had a lot of other clubs that focused on metal. They were like the two hot spots back then, East and the West Coast for heavy metal. And without the internet back then, you were kind of limited. You had to kind of work your way out of your area and then kind of spread out. But it all had to be done on the live front, or like mailing things out. It wasn't as easy as it today, where you click a button on the internet and some kid in Bangladesh can hear your music 10 seconds later.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a different environment, but I think what you had back then, and I mean not to say anything negative about today, but the people back then that were doing that stuff were extremely dedicated. I mean,
Yeah,
they were hardcore about everything, and
yeah,
I throw myself into that pile too because I lived, breathed, bled for this stuff, and still do today, and that the people that were there and helping to kind of build that scene, um, uh, it's great that they're still out there and still looking for this stuff and definitely appreciating that we have folks like Heaven and Hell and the guys over there that are interested in trying to get this stuff out there to those people. That's kind of what it's all about at this point.
It's true. I mean, you really do have to go all in, don't you? I mean, living in your van, working little part-time jobs, and the music and the band have to come first. I mean, I don't think a lot of people have that dedication, or when they try to do it, they realize it's not as easy as they think it is, and they kind of look for the safe way to support themselves. But is that really the only way to do it? Is like to go all in and just have to deal with whatever the consequences are, hoping that, it's a combination of talent and luck to make it in the music business.
Yeah, and I knew that myself personally, I knew that I was capable of that and ready to go all in, and I did, and kept that up for most of my life. And all I needed to do was find a group of other people, because I've never been one of those musicians that was going to do a solo project. I always had to have a band, I always had to feed off of other people, and luckily through the initial couple of steps that I had to go through when we did the Invid thing, getting with the final configuration of that band, we had some amazing musicians and amazing creative minds that were coming together. Very diverse group of people, but we also worked together amazingly well. There was very little conflict in the band, so we had and we had influences from all over the place, but yet we were able to put it all together. And that's one of the things that I think that stood out, and I think it's still one of the things that ties into making the band relevant even today, is the fact that we were able to take a real diverse group of individuals and styles and put it all together into one coherent package.
That's a rarity, because everybody has difference of opinions or different influences as far as music goes, but to get everybody to come together and agree that this is the sound of the band, this is where we want to be, and everybody can take what they want to put it into it, but we have to kind of agree upon it. That's a hard thing, because that leads to, I think, a lot of the fights and a lot of the problems within bands, that they just can't agree upon a sound and a style that is comfortable for 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, it was. We, I mean, not to say that everything was all smooth, but we did have our ups and downs. But ultimately, it was there was a common goal that I think everybody bought into, and once we started to get the songs together, and everybody started to see, oh, okay, now I see what this is all about. And then we got the music out there, played shows, and got the demos out. Then and people responded really well to all the stuff we were doing. It everything just kind of snowballed from there. So,
yeah. Well, the demo comes out in '91. The lineup is you, Jason, Keith, Mike, and Mike, singing and on percussion, or was it drums? The other Mike was the guitar. He passed away like 10 years ago, right? I think he was the other guitar player, the second guitar player, Michael.
Right, Mike Chickett, yeah.
Yeah, was that the lineup that you kind of knew was the lineup that the band was meant to be, or were there a lot of different personnel in the band before then that kind of came and went before you kind of settled on the 5 of you?
Yeah, and I would say that everybody that was a part of this, I mentioned Jerry earlier, Jerry Jameson, that is, he was the first guy, because he came out of the Dead Zone project with me, and then we moved over to Pittsburgh to start Invid, and everybody was a part of getting it to where it needed to be. They just put in their time, their contributions, and then they had to hand it off to somebody else for various reasons. But we were always building on that. There was setbacks, obviously, but the band itself, the progress of the band was something that we were always moving it forward. So once we got to the point where Mike and Keith came on board, it was basically just you guys jump in, and we're going to take it from here, and this is going to get us exactly where we need to be.
The demo comes out in '91, and when you think about the early '90s, Metallica was about to explode with the Black Album. I mean, grunge was starting to take hold. You had the hair metal bands that were kind of falling out of favor at that point in time, because people were moving on to different things. Everybody could say, if the band only came out 5 years earlier, like in the beginning of that scene exploded, they might have had a better shot of making it. But you can't help when a band forms and comes out. You never know when things are going to end and when things are going to go to shit. And the scene just happened to kind of collapse not long after that. Within a few years, it was pretty much buried. I mean, do you think if the band did get started early in any way, shape, or form, you might have more of a chance to grow, and this could have went on even longer?
It's hard to say. I mean, obviously the timing was not in our favor in some of these. We tried really hard. I do think that a lot of bands got caught up in that, and we weren't the only ones. But it back then also there was limited opportunity to do stuff on your own. So you needed a lot of support from label folks or people that had money or connections, things of that nature, to where they could help you get in, get your foot in the door in a lot of these places. We had ended up doing so much on our own, but to get those people to buy in at the time when they were thinking, no, we want grunge, we want this other stuff, now is it was frustrating, but I don't know. I think you have to look at it like the way that it developed, and it didn't just develop overnight. This was something that we all put in long hours, months, years, and so much work into getting this stuff going and getting to where it was. So that wouldn't have happened on a different timeline. Sure. And the way that it ended just had to be, I guess, because it wouldn't have been anything if it would have started earlier.
Yeah. Coming out of Pittsburgh, one of the more major cities in Pennsylvania, very populated, was there enough of a scene there to keep the band active, as far as the live front goes?
Yeah, I coming from North Carolina, I didn't have a lot of I guess I didn't have a lot of the history with the Pittsburgh scene, but there was some stuff going on at that time that was getting a little bit of attention. Backing up a little bit, of course, Doomwatch, Dream Death, Eviction, bands like that were they were actually getting some attention. So it wasn't like Pittsburgh was not on the map. It's just the style of music that we were playing was a different variety. So when we were coming up in Pittsburgh, I think there definitely was a void, and there was an opportunity for a band like us to kind of jump in there and take advantage of what people were looking for and kind of lacking in the scene in some ways. But as far as what Pittsburgh had to offer above and beyond that, it's hard to say. I don't know that if we would have stayed in Pittsburgh, if anything would have happened. Obviously, we always had, especially when Jason came in the band, we had expectations, and we were just not going to settle for anything but the ultimate. We were going to work for it, obviously, but we knew that we weren't going to settle for just being the kings of the local scene or whatever, and that meant that we had to just go for it and go all out. And getting out of the Pittsburgh area was definitely it was a necessity for us. It just, there again with the timing, that kind of made it not as effective as we would have hoped. But Florida at the time, I think, had a lot going on. I mean, you had some, there was a lot of death metal bands in Florida, and Sabotage and some of those other guys that were around there. Yeah, I think it was just sort of a perfect storm of challenges that ultimately led to the end of the band. But moving to Florida out of Pittsburgh was definitely a necessity for us. Maybe if we would have chosen someplace like a New York or LA, certainly, maybe things would have been differently. I really don't know, but yeah, it's hard to say. I think the experience we had in Florida was definitely a good one for the most part. We took advantage of everything that we had around at that time, and certainly in that environment. But
well, Florida did have a great scene. No, Florida had an amazing scene. Florida had an amazing, like you said, you're talking about Sabotage, you had Crimson Glory, then you go to the West Coast in the Tampa area, you had Nasty Savage, Oblivion, Siren. all the death metal bands came out of the area. Like I said, Morbid Angel, Death. There was a lot going on over there, depending on where you were. But it was also a change in time for a lot of bands. And when you say like how much you did
Yeah.
on your own, when you think about it, every band, kind of started out that way, having to do everything on their own. But whereas today, there are more tools available to you to do it on your own and not really have to count or rely on anybody else. Back then, like it says, to get to that next step or that next level, you did need help. You did need a record label to kind of step in to get that album made and distributed. I mean, how hard did you guys have to work on trying to get the album out there? I mean, trying to get the record, the demo out to labels to try to make an album out of it. I mean, there were only a handful of labels to go to at that time when you think about it. But was there a lot of work in trying to get those labels to give the band a shot?
Oh yeah, we and I think Jason especially had a real good sense of the business aspects of where we needed to go, and he spent a lot of time. He went to a lot of these conferences and a lot of these a lot of these different areas where he was trying to meet up with some of these folks and make some of the connections, and I think that did. Ultimately, for him personally, it led to a pretty decent career in music business, PR wise. So it sort of launched that. But what he was doing at the time for us with the band was the same kinds of things as he had done professionally later on. So we were definitely, we spent, I don't know how many hours and putting together press kits and mailing out press kits and trying to figure out different ways to get people, to get attention to the band. And it was a huge focus to try to get somebody or some entity on board to help support us to get us to that next level. It just never really happened at that time.
Yeah, it was definitely hard. And for people who don't realize it, Jason is the Jason from Icarus Witch, another famous and well-known Pittsburgh band.
Oh yeah, and and we've all gone on to do a lot of different things with music, and I think what Jason has done with his career is a good. I mean, you look at that and you see, a lot of that came out of this. Because when we first met up, he was still in high school, and we did the Invid thing, and he just ran with it. Got involved with record labels and booking agencies and things like that, and now the Icarus Witch stuff. So it was definitely a springboard for all of us to do bigger and better things musically in a lot of different ways. It's a shame that Invid was more or less just a support piece in our lives or careers to that extent. But the fact that we're able to now, with this CD release, pay respect and tribute to the presence that Invid was in all of our lives at the time, and what it meant to our careers going forward is very, very much appreciated on a personal level.
It's some great stuff, and I'm glad that it's going to be out there again for a lot of people to hear. But after that was over, I guess you kind of went back home down North Carolina, and Dark Moon came out. Completely different band in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and that's just me. I think I never bought into any of the traditional stuff. I mean, when I was growing up, there was a lot of very distinct lines drawn in terms of what scene you were into. So in high school, I was more into a punk scene growing up, and I appreciated the more aggressive kind of, but also theatrical aspects of some of that kind of stuff. And so metal wasn't even really a big thing on my radar, as a kid growing up. But when we were moving forward, I think it all started to find its place. So with Invid, like I had mentioned, we took a real diverse group of individuals with strong backgrounds and interests in a lot of different areas, and we were able to make that work in a coherent form. But after we moved on individually, everybody sort of ran with it in their own sort of personal direction. So at the time, my personal direction was definitely heading into a much more extreme area, and black metal was a big thing for me back then. And yeah, the Darkman opportunity was there again. It was an amazing chance that I had, that I was willing to go all in on. And the stories I could tell you about, roughing it out to try to get that band, and that opportunity where it was some crazy stuff. But yeah, it's none of it was easy. It was tough, but it was all worth it. So I appreciated all of that too. But I guess it's hard to explain how all of that stuff works in my head, because from the outside, I'm sure it seems a little weird.
No, I mean, you know what it is? As time goes on, things change. You become more diverse. You listen to different things, and everything influences you, and you want to try. Do you think if you were playing in one band that played one style of music since the 80s, you would be happy doing that?
If I was?
Yeah, like if you started a band in '89, if you were doing Invid, do you think you could still see yourself doing Invid if you were doing it for the last 30 years, like playing the same style of music? Or would you have to keep experimenting and trying different things? As a musician and as a songwriter, you want to always challenge yourself,
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question, and I don't know. I mean, I think what we had with Invid was a vehicle that could have potentially gone in a lot of different directions. I look at a band like Emperor, and I see, you look at where they started, and they were some pretty raw, harsh black metal when they first came on the scene, and then they developed into a real progressive kind of a thing that was very intricate and very orchestral, and just lots of stuff going on. So I think Invid, I think there may have been an opportunity there to accommodate our growing differences in style as we were coming through, but it would have been neat to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes two ways, because you'll have a band like Iron Maiden or AC/DC that pretty much sounds the same now that they did 30, 40 years ago, some of 50 years ago. They play the same style, the same genre of music, because that's what the fans like, that's what they want to hear. Each member's gone on and done different things on their own because they have different tastes in music after playing the same shit all their lives. But then you have the fan aspect of, do I want to hear Iron Maiden sound like, Emperor? No. I want to hear Iron Maiden sound like Iron Maiden. But do I want to hear a member of Iron Maiden do something like that? Yeah, absolutely. So, you got to watch how you draw the line, I guess. Well, the fans go along with me on this ride. That's the whole thing, because they're the ones that are going to make or break you as a band.
Oh, absolutely. And, that was... We were fortunate in that aspect with Invid, in that I think what we were bringing in the combination and the way that we were able to utilize all of the different aspects, it appealed to a lot of the fans without turning off any of the fans. So we had people from death metal background, black metal, all the way up to just power metal, straight ahead classic kind of stuff, and everybody was on board for the whole thing. And that's one of the reasons why I think you still see it, and you see folks like Heaven and Hell wanting to put this music out there, because I think it was unique in a lot of ways, and it's entirely possible that we might have been able to run with that and just gone off in different directions here and there, never straying too far from the ultimate heavy side of things, but making some pretty diverse albums going forward. It might have been neat to see what we would have come up with.
Yeah. Were you surprised when they reached out to you about the Invid stuff? Did you think that people had forgotten about it after all those years? Because after Dark Moon, there was Werewolf, which I think kind of came out of Dark Moon anyway. A lot of the guys were in both bands, and then I didn't hear anything about you after that for a very long time. So were you surprised about the interest in Invid?
I was, to be honest with you. Most of the what was going on with me at the time was more on the personal level. So that I was never out of music per se. It was just that the things going on in my life personally didn't allow for any kind of significant effort, and that's just kind of how I am. I've always been where I'm all in. I have a real hard time half-assing anything, whether it's even just a jam kind of thing. It has a tendency to go all out for me. So coming up on this and having this pop up as a hey, Invid, what do you think? And sure, I went back through and I started listening to the stuff again, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had so much cool stuff going on there that I think if we had a chance to even resurrect the band, it would be an amazing situation for a lot of people. I think there's good stuff there, and I'm really thankful that we've had the opportunity to do this. But I got to admit, yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised that they want to do this, and then to see how everything's come together with the production and the layout and everything. It's really, really nice.
Yeah,
So
Heaven and Hell does
definitely
great
appreciate
jobs.
everything.
Heaven Hell always does a
Yeah.
great job on their releases, but you kind of just got going with my next question. Now that this is out there and people are hearing it, a lot of people for the first time, there's a younger generation out there now that's so into the stuff from the 80s and the early 90s that are going to hear this. Is there a chance that you might think about putting a lineup together? I mean, are most of the people, I know we know Jason's still involved in music, but is there a way of putting some sort of lineup back together to maybe go out and do more music or just play some shows around this, even festivals?
Yeah, I'm a real optimist in that way, and where I would say never. But it would take a lot. We're all older, and we do have a lot going on outside of music in all of our lives. So there would definitely be some challenges in trying to make that happen. But whether the motivation would be there or not, yeah, I wouldn't question that. The timing and being able to actually put the logistics of putting something together would be more the issue. Everybody still plays. Everybody's still doing their thing. So I could see it coming together real quickly if we actually decided to do it. But I'm not sure that I'm not sure if it's something that's going to happen or not. We will just have to wait and see.
Well, I hope it does. Wasn't there another release after the demo about a year later with Crypt of Reflection on it?
Yeah, and that is actually on the Heaven and Hell release. So
Yeah.
we have both demos on there. And that was a little bit later. So we had the first demo, and then we had the Crypt of Reflection and Endless Void were the two songs on that demo. And that's a little bit of a progression in some of our abilities and production-wise and things like that. So you might be able to pick up on a little bit of the advanced differences between the two, but for the most part, it's those were all songs that we had in our set, like when we play live shows or whatever. Those everything all went in together. But that was the one that we had. I think we had felt the strongest. Like once we got out of the studio, when we listened to the tape, we put it in after it was all done. It was like, oh, this is it. This is exactly what we want to present as far as the band goes. So that's got a lot of. I mean, those songs are very strong, and I think the material there will definitely carry through, and people will definitely appreciate that stuff. And having that on this release in combination with the first one is makes a lot of sense.
It does. And, for Journey of the Blind, you kind of went with the name of one of the songs off the first demo for the album.
Yeah, that I wasn't really a part of the process as far as naming the CD. I'm not sure that might have been more on Jason's end, but that song had some significance for us personally as far as the band goes. I think it also has elements of our style that if someone were to listen to one song from the band and they listen to that song, I think they would kind of get it. And they would know whether or not they would want to listen to more. But you listen to the lyrics and you read into it. I think it's sort of it's definitely a song that fits being the title track, if you will.
True. Chuck, when did the band officially end? Was it like 93?
Let's see. 93 was, yeah, I think it started falling apart in 93, and then it was one of those things where it fizzled out more than officially ended. We were all down in Florida, and it was we were struggling. We had some stuff going, and then things were being a little bit difficult for us at the time, and I want to say that a couple of the guys wanted to get back to Pittsburgh, and so that kind of pushed us to a place where basically it came down to me and Jason, I think, sitting there saying, do we want to try to get other people in and keep this thing going? Or is this maybe a sign that it's, this is the end of the cycle, the end of the chapter for this band? Leaving it open that maybe somewhere down the road, 30 years from now, maybe something will come back. But at the time, I think we said, this could be the universe telling us that this is the end of this chapter. And it was probably the right thing to do at the time. It would have been a real rough road, I think, if we wanted to try and now thinking back on it, maybe there were some guys that we tried to bring in to try to fill some spots at the time. I'm not entirely clear on that, but it wasn't ever a real serious effort to try to prevent the split. So we all kind of took it as what it was, and it became the end of the band at that point in time.
Like you were saying earlier, like when you do something, you go all in. There's no doing anything half-assed. It's all or nothing. So when the band like this ends, you kind of lick your wounds and say, all right, we tried. I got to move on now. What is it? Do you sit there saying, I put so much into this. I mean, I hate to just let it go.
Yeah. And then, and I always do this too. I do this with all the bands that I've been in. I listen back to the stuff all the time. And I'm not just, I try to be as objective as possible and listen to this stuff, but I hear this and I'm like, damn, that's some really neat stuff. It's music that I like, as a fan. And it's a shame that, that when you hear that and you just say, oh man, I wish we could have made more out of that. But that's where something like this pops up. You get guys from heaven and hell saying, hey, we want to do something with Invid. Then it's like, oh, wow. I mean, I know it's it's been a while, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, better late than never. So.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, Chuck, I'm going to have to let you go in a few minutes because I want to play a couple of songs, and most of them are about 7 minutes long, so it's going to eat up a good chunk of the show. Okay. So I'm going to get a few of those tunes off. And I have your old wreckage demo. I'm going to dig it up before the end of the show if I can and try to play something off it.
Oh, my God. Yeah. No. I don't know if you want to play that.
I will
let that have that?
Yeah, I got a copy of that. Yeah, I've got a copy of that. I just got to see if I have the digital because, everything's digital today. I got to see if I have it already on the computer, so I'm going to play that. If not, I'll do it over the week. Maybe I'll get it on next week's show.
Oh, my God. I don't even have that. Can you send that to me, please?
If I have it all digitized, I'll send it to you right after the show. If not, I have to get the machine out and transfer it.
That's funny.
Yeah, I got the cassette in my collection somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if I already transferred it, I'll send it to you. Don't worry. If not, as soon as I get to it, I'll give it over to you.
That's great. Yeah. It's been a while.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. I mean, I hope that, maybe you guys kind of sit down when they say, you know what, let's give this another shot and try it again, just for fun. It'd be great to see you guys out there live doing these songs again.
No, I agree too. And I really hope that once we start getting some feedback and start to get some reaction after the CDs are out there, that some of the other guys will will want to take this to the next level too. And if we get everybody on board, then who knows what can happen.
I hope it does. So I'm going to get on a silent termination right now and play some songs right after that. But Chuck, it was great talking to you. Best of luck with everything you do musically.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me on.
My pleasure. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
All right, let's get on something off the Invid on Heaven and Hell. You know, if you buy anything from Heaven and Hell, you know you're getting a good quality product. Jeremy does a great job on everything he puts out there. So here you go.
The Just
that's some really great stuff. Invid, Crypt of Reflection. Before that, Silent Termination. Pick up the record. It's just being shipped, I believe, this week too from Heaven and Hell. So get over to the website and buy this album. Oh, all right. You know what? We got a great show for everybody next week too. My girl is back on. Leather Leone. We haven't spoken in a couple of years since the last record came out. Leather will be in New York next week, so we're going to have her on the show live. So all the guests are live this month. You know, sometimes we have to pre-record some interviews, but this month everybody is live. So don't forget to tune in next Sunday night. And then we got 1 week of shows left after that. I'll do our holiday shows, and we'll be back in the beginning of January. So stick around with us over there. Earlier, Eamon wanted to talk about the Pantera reunion. You know what? I'm not a big Pantera fan. I never have been. If I was going to say I was a fan of any Pantera, it would have been the earlier stuff with Terry Glaze. I know people are probably scratching their heads, but I'm not a fan of Phil at all. I mean, he's probably the second biggest dick, if not the first one, next to Sebastian Bach. I mean, those two are like neck and neck of pricks of all time, in my opinion. And I just don't really care for them. This isn't Pantera, you know, and people not a new thing is like it's not a reunion, it's a tribute, it's not this, it's that. Everybody tries to justify what things are. It's just a money grab, that's all it is. And they think it sounds better when they say, well, they got the blessings of, of Vinny and Daryl's like girlfriends or wives, whoever was their next of kin. They're saying that because they're probably getting a small cut of the money that's coming from this tour of the show because they're going out and playing under the Pantera name. That's why they're okay with it, but it's not Pantera. Listen, I love Zakk Wylde. I think he's, one of the greatest guys ever, and there's nothing he does that I don't like. He's just one of those guys that you can't help but love, no matter what. So it is cool seeing him up there, but it's not Pantera. You only got Rex, who's actually the only original member of the band when you think about it, and he's like the least popular member of Pantera. I don't know when anybody cares about the least, in my opinion, but it's just stupid. I mean, I didn't even get through any of the videos. You hear all these people defending it, saying how great it was, and it's this and that, and I just don't get it. That's just my opinion. I mean, it didn't happen when those two were alive for a reason. They could have put that band back together, reunited. They didn't do it for a reason. It should have just died with them. When the band ended, before they started Damage Plan, it should have just ended. That's the way it would have been. Do you think if Vinny didn't pass away a few years ago, that this would be going on? If there was still one of the brothers still here, do you think this would have took place without them being a part of it or sanctioning it? Absolutely not. I don't even think they would have done it with two other guys playing bass and singing. So it should have just ended with them, and that's the way it should have been. Just my opinion. Then John has sent me a link to Metallica. They have the new record coming out. The M72 tour is going to happen next year, where they're doing 2 shows at the same venue, and these are probably all going to be big, humongous stadiums, because that's what Metallica plays these days, and you're getting 2 different sets. But when you look at these prices, they're like packages. Don't get me wrong, these aren't just the regular ticket prices. They're like, VIP type packages, but they're unbelievably expensive. I mean, through the roof expensive. There's the $8,000 package, or close to $8,000 for 8 people, where you get your own little platform. It's going to be like one of these shows in the round, like what Def Leppard did with the Pyromania tour, that type of thing. You can sit, right in the middle of the action. $8,000. People are like, oh, it's for 8 people. I'm like, that's still $1,000 a person, and you get a bucket of beer and soda with it. I mean, come on. And I'm hearing people talk about the new Metallica song because they released a video with the new song on there. I personally don't care for it. I haven't been a fan of Metallica since the late 80s. I mean, even when Injustice for All came out, I didn't really think it was great. I love it today based on everything they did after that. When you heard the shit they did in the 90s and the 2000s, and Justice for All sounds like Kill 'Em All. I mean, that's just how bad that record was back then and how great it is compared to everything they've done after that. And listen, people have the right to their opinion, but I hear people online, especially in some of the social media groups and stuff, how they're talking about how this Metallica record is it's like as good as Kill 'Em All. I'm like, what the fuck are you people listening to? Are you listening to something that I'm not? Are you hearing something that I'm not hearing? This is like old school. They're like, oh, this is like such old school Metallica, more old school than Damage Inc. was. I'm like, that wasn't. I mean, I'm not sorry, not Damage Inc. The last record that came out. I'm like, that wasn't even old school. Nothing Metallica has done since Injustice for All has been old school. Nothing at all. I mean, granted, they deserve all the fame they got. They deserve all the money that they make. I wouldn't deny them any of it. They worked hard for it. They did it. They took a genre that nobody thought would go anywhere, and they took it to the major labels. They took it to the arenas and the stadiums. I mean, after they opened up for Ozzy in '86 when the record came out, and they went on tour. Motley Crue went on tour with Ozzy the year before that, and they exploded after that. And the same thing happened for Metallica, and they were headlining arenas right after that tour. So when Master Puppets came out, that broke Metallica big, and they've been big ever since that time. The Black Album took them to another level. Yes, I understand that, but I didn't really care for it because you're sort of changing direction. I think Bob Rock absolutely killed that band. When he told James Hetfield he could be a singer and start singing, he took the aggression and the rage out of his voice, and that's what made Metallica Metallica in those early days. The intensity that he sang with. And I get it, if you're going to do it long term, it's telling him you got to learn how to use your voice, how to sing, but it destroyed the fabric of the band, in my opinion. Worse so than when Cliff Burton died, because to me, he was the heart and soul of that band, and the music and everything changed about them after he was gone. But when James started trying to become a real singer and learning how to sing, it just destroyed it. If you saw the show that they did a couple of weeks ago with Raven in Florida, where they were playing a benefit for Johnny Z and Marsha Z from Megaforce Records, it was great hearing all the old Metallica songs again. Like, when I first saw them in the early 80s playing live, because they were here in New York when they were recording that record. They did quite a few shows here. And I got to see the last show with Dave Mustaine on guitar with them, which was pretty cool too. But Metallica just don't sound like Metallica anymore. I'm listening to him singing those songs on stage, and his voice does not sound like it belongs in Metallica anymore. It just doesn't. The songs don't sound the same with him singing them anymore. He can't sing them the way he used to. And I get, you're a singer. You're singing for 40 years. It takes a toll on your voice. I get that. But to me, this isn't Metallica. When people say that this new song sounds like it belongs on Kill 'Em All or it's classic Metallica, I just want to know what the fuck drugs you're taking, because I want to get on some of them myself. This does not sound like old school Metallica in any way, shape, or form. It's not even a good song in my opinion. I know other people say this is the greatest song they ever wrote, but that's what opinions are about. My opinion is as big as an asshole's as anybody else's, but they do not sound the same. To spend this kind of money on a package is just insane. There's like a $4,000 package where you get to meet two members of the band. One member is always going to be Rob, the bass player. He's going to be out there every night. Metallica's going to say, you go out there, and the three of us will take turns rotating with you. Maybe you'll get James Hetfield at one or two shows, and it'll probably be Robin and Kirk doing all of these things, because you got to hard to get James out there to do it. And I should say, because Lars is a narcissist who loves the attention he gets from anybody, so he might be out there too doing a lot of them. But $4,000 to meet Metallica for 5 minutes, ask them a question, and get a picture taken with them. I met Metallica half a dozen times at the local record store for free back in the 80s. Didn't cost me anything, and the ticket was about $6 for the show if you even paid that much back then. I mean, it's just insane. It's absolutely insane. But then, after John showed me this price list and everything, a lot of people saying, well, I got my tickets for $400. These are the packages. If you just want to buy a regular ticket, it's $400. I'm like, $400 for the two tickets for the nosebleed section at in Giant Stadium where they're probably going to play. I'm like, that's $200 a night to see Metallica not sound like Metallica. I mean, I'm looking at this, and these people that are buying these tickets are in my age group, so they were around, and I'm pretty sure they saw Metallica in their prime. I mean, are you that big of a fan that you can't see like how the band changed? I mean, I guess you got to be that big of a fan to go along with the changes that's taken place with the band over the last 4 decades. I wasn't. I just don't listen to them anymore because of that. I'll take that old school Metallica any day of the week, love it, but I don't care for who they are now. And even to spend $400 on a ticket to a show, I think that's fucking crazy. I'm going to come right out and say it. I don't care who it is. That's nuts. And I was like, I can't believe that's what they're getting for a nosebleed. The last seat in the last row, probably halfway behind the curtain, $400. But then, like I was saying earlier before we started talking to Chuck, we have a theater out here in Staten Island called the St. George Theater. It's a very old school theater, sort of like Radio City Music Hall in Manhattan. A big Art Deco theater that was well restored. I saw Quite Right there. God, had to be about 18 years ago. This theater must hold maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people. And there were maybe 100 people there. There was an Iron Maiden cover band which features Sal Italiano, the bass player from Cities. He's in an Iron Maiden cover band. At least he was. He moved to Florida, so I don't know if the band is still active or going on right now. They opened up, and most of the people that were there for them. Quite Right did have Frankie on drums back then still, and Kevin DuBrow was singing. Alex Rossi was on guitar, and Chuck Wright was on bass. And by the time they came on, there couldn't be more than 60 people. When you're in a theater that holds 3,000 or 4,000 people, I mean, it's kind of, you can hear like the crickets chirping in there. It was so empty over there. And it was like only 2 people. And I had just had my cancer surgery like 2 weeks before then. And my wife had gotten me the tickets for Father's Day, and she came with me because I needed the help getting around. And she's not really a metalhead or into it, but she's a trooper. She went out and did it with me. But it was kind of pathetic watching that. And those tickets were about $20 to see Quite Right, back then. And I went to the website the other day to go check to see what's been playing there lately, because they do have some bands. Blue Oyster Cult played there last month, and Ross the Boss's other band, The Dictators, opened up for them. So I was thinking about going down there, but I was like, I didn't want to get out of the house. And the tickets were like $150 for like the balcony. So I was looking, I saw Chicago, the band Chicago, the pop band Chicago was playing there. And tickets in the first 25 rows of this little theater in Staten Island were going for $400. The nosebleed seats up in the balcony were going for about 100. So it's like, is this like what it is right now? So maybe it isn't just Metallica. I mean, yeah, you don't have to buy those big packages, but is this what $400 to see Chicago, which might have one original member in the band, and it's probably not a member that anybody knows or cares about? I mean, is that what it's going for? And out here in Staten Island, it's hard to pack that theater in because nobody wants to come out here to Staten Island where I live in New York City. The only way to get out here is to drive over one of four bridges, which is going to cost you $20 alone for the bridge. There's no public transportation that goes from any of the outer boroughs to here. Unless you go to Manhattan and take the ferry over, then you have to take the one train that goes straight up the middle. It's impossible to get around there here without a car. And if you're driving down there, there's no parking because of the area that's located in. So, I mean, that's why I'm like, who's paying $400? I don't even think there's enough people in Staten Island to even fill up the first couple of rows of theater that would want to go see Chicago at that price. So maybe this is just the way of the world and the way things are now. I don't know. It's not for me. Metallica's not for me these days. If you're still into them, God bless you. Enjoy it, love it. Like I said, they deserve whatever they got, but I'm just not a fan, so who the hell knows? So let's play some Metallica. Let's do some old school Metallica since we were talking about them. Here's Metal Militia. Mighty Crumbsuckers with Bullshit Society. Love that band, love those guys. Before that, Dead On with Merry Ship, Astrogoth with Heroes Museum. We kicked things off with classic old school Metallica, Metal Militia. You know, it's funny because, you know, we ended that set with Crumbsuckers. We started it with Metallica. I remember, I want to say it was 1985, maybe 86. The mind starts to get a little shaky as we get older. Kirk Hammett gets up on stage at CBGB's with the Crumbsuckers to do a song. And I remember Tommy Carroll, who was in Straight Ahead, I think, at the time. He was in a band called Mayhem, or they changed the name to New York City Mayhem. He was a drummer. Tommy is an absolute dick. He's like the Sebastian Bach of the hardcore scene. You know, he's just an asshole. I've had my issues with that guy, too, back then. This is even before I was playing with Stillborn, you know, when I had first met Gordon Ansys, who was the guitar player for the band, and later went on to play guitar with Agnostic Front, and he was a really good guy. These were a bunch of, like, rich Upper Park Avenue people, like, you know, from the city. Their families had tons of money, you know, and they wanted to, you know, commensurate with the lowlives, I guess, for hanging out at the Bowery. You know, that's the only way to say it, but they were kids that came from houses with money, you know. And Tommy, like I said, he was just a kind of prick. And Kirk got up there with the Crumbsuckers to play. I think this was before the Crumbsuckers album, Life of Dreams, came out. And Tommy grabbed the mic and started yelling shit and cursing at Kirk Hammett. Now, Kirk was with Metallica, and Metallica kind of, you know, was pretty big at that time. They had just broke at that time. And if I remember, he came with Billy Milano because, you know, SOD was on Megaforce and Metallica were on Megaforce at one time. And, you know, they all kind of knew each other. And he played it, and Tommy was just talking shit about him, if I remember. And I don't remember, somebody spit on, I don't remember if Kirk spit on Tommy or Tommy spit on Kirk. It had like a little spitting thing going on, and then like all hell broke loose, you know. And they wound up dragging Tommy out of there and kicking him out of the club. And I remember Chris ripping into him during the show. Fun day. Those were things were like back then. All right, we're going to wrap it up here tonight. We'll do 2 more songs, and we're going to call it a night. Don't forget to tune in live next week. Leda Leone is on, my girl. I have to ask her what's going on with Veronica Freeman. Maybe she knows. I haven't been able to reach out or get in touch with Veronica in many years. Since her husband passed away, she's been like kind of off the radar completely. She'll pop up here and there for a few minutes, and then she's gone again. But I do know that she's on the new Leather record, so we'll play a song off of that and maybe try to coerce Leather to get in touch with V for us, because I miss her. We had her on the show so many times. We always had fun talking. She was such a sweetheart, and I love her. I hope that we can get her on here again one day. Hopefully she'll start doing some music again. That would help out, right? All right, how about we do some Hex, because they were talking about Hex in the chat room. We'll do Beware the Darkness, and then we'll wrap it up with one other song. Maybe Reaper will do, or Saber Tiger. We'll see whatever fits in when we get done with this song. But take care, everybody. Have a great week. I want to thank my guest, Chuck, for being on here tonight. Pick up the Invid record on Heaven and Hell Records. They do a great job on all the releases. All right, take care, everybody. Have a great week. I will see you next Sunday night.